Wirral, and we're going to. But before doing that, could we just talk a little bit about the council itself? And you, as an ex-councillor, probably have some inside info on this. Talk me through Wirral Borough Council, because I can't get my head around it.
Well, it was 2004, I think, when I ceased being a councillor. So I'm a little bit out of date in some of the operational sides of it. But it's probably not too dissimilar to many other councils, but it's dysfunctional, in a word.
Well, that's what I said at the start. Although this is a local discussion, it's going to be relevant to everybody, because in my experience, they're all the same.
Yeah, they are. I mean, we've got a problem, and I think that most councillors and most senior officers in the councils are not aware of the kind of social and demographic and cultural and political and economic changes that are going on within the constituency of Wirral Borough Council. There's major demographic changes happening, and most councillors seem to be unaware of them, and I found that really quite concerning.
And I mean, I said that all councils are the same, but in actual fact, I withdraw that, because actually I think we have one of the worst. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Wirral Borough Council is effectively bankrupt. It has no money. It has no reserves. The only reason it continues to avoid being taken over by the government is through emergency grants that have been offered it over the last couple of years.
Sorry, these are not grants though, are they? These are loans.
I think there's a mixture of grants and loans, but they're certainly heavily indebted to international banks.
I think what you'll find is that most of the grants are for specific purposes.
They are.
And a lot of them are related to things like net zero and equality, and all sorts of things that national government are wanting to push.
Yeah.
So if there's some particular thing that they want to push like that, they will offer a grant to the council for do it. But that money is then ring fenced and can only be used for that specific purpose.
Yeah.
But in the case of a few weeks ago, when effectively WBC ran out of money, they had to go and get an emergency loan from the government. Now, I looked at the terms of that loan, and my granddaughter will be paying it off.
Yeah.
It's 50 years.
Yeah.
It's just saddling ourselves, and this seems to have been happening. I looked at, there was a report I think you sent me. SIPFAS. Yeah, talk me through that, because that was from 2021, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was a sort of forward-looking report on the short to medium-term funding difficulties of Wirral Borough Council, and the structural weaknesses that existed. And the independent people that run that report were damning of the poor levels of cooperation between the political class and the management class of Wirral Borough Council. There was a clear belief that there was decisions getting made for political expediency, but with no economic prudence. And it was really very, very critical of them all, the councillor class and the management class within Wirral Borough Council. And they pointed out that it's been like that for a few years. And despite previous reports, they'd not addressed any of the problems.
And the funny thing was that having been written in 2021, and you now look at where the council are, and it was like a prediction. Everything that they had said, nothing had changed.
Well, they've just had Grant Thornton ripping them to pieces as independent auditors, making recommendations this year. And Grant Thornton made the same observations and the same criticisms of the SIPFAS report of a few years ago.
That's right. It was like looking in a mirror.
And then the changes, the budgetary changes that are coming through, they go nowhere towards addressing the financial difficulties that the council's going to face. It comes out with a budget every year, and by about 3 or 4 months into the year, it's then putting its hands up and saying, well, we're not going to achieve this budget. We're heading for another deficit. And then, of course, they're getting involved in discussions with central government then as to how to meet these deficit problems. I mean, the latest thing was they made 200 redundancies. Well, they've got a staff of about 3,500 people. 200 redundancies. It's just pathetic.
Yeah, it's not going to start, is it?
No.
And it's as if they don't see the fact that they're not going to meet their budgets in almost any department. But it's as if they can't see it coming. Doesn't seem to be any real financial controls on the spending at all. I mean, I was looking at, the two areas I think which they say takes most of the money are on child services and adult social care. Now, it was in the Echo the other day that there's one child with special educational needs, and that one child is costing the council £600,000 a year.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean, it's unsustainable. Yeah.
These are statutory services that they have to provide, but they need to provide them economically and efficiently, and they don't do that. They don't seem to benchmark themselves against some of the really good councils in the country. And every council's got the same kind of responsibilities.
That's right.
And some administer those responsibilities well, and some don't. And Wirral doesn't. It just wastes vast amounts of money. There's no commercial sense at all. We've looked at the makeup of the council, particularly the Labour benches, and there's hardly anybody who's got any business experience. They've all worked in local government, they've all worked in the civil service, they've all worked for the government in one capacity or another. Hardly any of them actually run a business. So the kind of disciplines that you might need to run a big budget are not there in the town hall.
Yeah, and the quality of the officials. I mean, I think it goes back to, if you were a bright young accountant who just qualified, would you go into the local council for a job?
No. Well, you might now, because they get paid ridiculous sums of money, and their pensions are just off the Richter scale. In fact, pensions, I would like to illuminate people.
Oh, carry on with that, yeah.
On the pensions that Wirral Borough Council employees enjoy. At a time of great financial crisis, the Wirral Borough Council, supported by the councillors, have decided that they are going to contribute 25% of all our council tax monies to the benefit of the pension scheme of the Wirral Borough Council staff. 25% of all our council taxes that get paid are going straight into the pension fund at a time of great financial crisis. It's just lunacy. Generally speaking, an employer's contribution in pension schemes is normally about 5, 6, 7%. How do you justify 25%? And that's coming straight out of our taxes.
So what sort of pensions are these people ending up with?
These people are on pensions that are on average about 4 times what anybody in the private sector gets who earns the same kind of money.
Unbelievable.
It's nuts.
Just going back to the child services again.
Yeah.
It seems to me that one of the things that, the government put a statutory responsibility on councils to carry out, and the main driver at the moment seems to be dealing with children who have got special educational needs.
Yeah.
Now, it seems to me that in an area such as particularly East Wirral, which is fairly deprived, then all of the people who are living in there who are on some kind of benefits get extra money by having their child diagnosed as having special educational needs.
Yeah.
Now, that's a very powerful driver. If you're on universal credit and you can get extra cash if you can suggest that your child has got autism or ADHD or whatever, then you're going to want to do it, aren't you?
Well, if I, as a local politician, went out there and said, all the children who live in Bidston, all the children who live in Birkenhead or Rockferry or Seacombe or wherever it is, which are the poorer areas of the Wirral, if I suggested that they had some kind of behavioural propensity or some intellectual lack of capacity, etc., I would get crucified.
And rightly so.
No, I'm not suggesting that they do have these deficiencies. I go the other way, and I think these kids are potentially the same as every other kid out there. But the evidence would suggest differently. In a lot of schools now on the Wirral, 40 to 50% of these kids are viewed as in need of special needs. Now, I don't believe that.
No.
I just do not believe that. So you've got to ask yourself your question, what is going on here? Is this...
And it's the consequences for the finances I'm talking about as well. I mean, I know just up the road from me, there's a guy, and he's got a child who's picked up every single morning by a taxi to be taken to school, and then later on in the day is dropped off by the taxi. This guy is in an affluent area. He's got a nice house. He's got a Range Rover sat in the drive that never leaves it. Now, does that make any sense?
No, it doesn't, and it should be stamped on, and it's just weak management on the part of the local authority.